We're just like touching. Jesus.
You already know
I have no idea.
That is.
The third exam is a group exam. You'll take it as a cohort.
Oh my God, yes.
No way.
We need to do all of them like that.
The department chair is right out there. Do not say it loud enough that he can hear it.
I'm sorry. What are you doing on our side? I need to sit with my cohort.
Is that what we're supposed to do with our
So how would it be? I'm
Huh?
trying to get familiar.
So the 5 of you all will take the exam together and get the same grade.
Oh my God. God is good.
Guys, I don't know if you know this or not. I want you to be successful.
I know, and I feel that.
Okay. Well, why would I not do things to help you?
Because I'm just stressed and I feel like I'm about to have a cold sore.
She's not real. Me right now. See, we learned something new.
I don't know. Especially from Bree, because she's open like a book. She just tells you everything.
I do.
Are you leaving?
Yeah, that was a long day.
All right. So, anybody else have questions? So, by the way, when is your antibiotic project due?
Friday.
By?
12. And the new.
I put it on because you're the one who called me on it the last time. You go, I don't see that written anywhere. I'm like, oh, okay. We have a lawyer in the house. By noon. I have to grade all those things, and I'd like to have at least 1 or 2 days off during spring break, which is probably usually they get. Okay? Look out, wait, she's coming through. She's so excited, she's moving closer. Okay, so let's talk about the fungi. The fungi, we're not gonna, Unit 3 is all about the survey of organisms. All right, we'll do the fungi first, it's about an hour. We'll do the parasites, and the parasites have 3 groups. The parasites are the protozoans, the metazoans, the worms, and then the large things that are on your skin or in your hair. They're lice and keds and ticks and those kind of things. Right? So we're going to talk about those also. If we think about that for a moment, right? That's going to be about a 2 to 2 hour and 15-minute lecture. So it's going to be over a couple of days. And then the virus is 2 hours. There's a lot to talk about with those guys. And so we're looking at about 5-hour time just talking about Unit 3. Okay? But it is a group exam and you will take it in your cohort. And everybody get the same grade. Unless I see somebody like Lisette and she's like only looking at her phone and not helping anybody, then she might have to take it all by herself. You don't want to take this by yourself, it's very long. There's a lot of material in here. Most of them are vocabulary words, and you have to be able to make sense of those. Okay? So if we think about the fungi, right, the study of the fungi is known as mycology. And I'm going to tell you right now, I like disease, and when we talk about the fungi, those guys don't really scare me. There are some really true nasty ones in there, but they're very few. There are only 5 major pathogens in the entire world. The other guys are opportunistic, right? An opportunistic pathogen means that they're given, this is how you spell opportunistic pathogen. If given the right environment, they can cause trouble. But usually they're with you all the time and they might cause you to sneeze a little bit, but they're not gonna cause a lot of troubles, okay? So it's important for us to understand that. They belong to the kingdom of the fungi. They're all chemoheterotrophic, and what that means is that they need to consume something else in order to get their nutrients, and that something else can either be alive or it can be dead already, right? If it's alive, they become parasitic. If it's dead, they become saprophytic, but they're both heterotrophic, right? They're all multicellular except the yeast are single-celled, right? The yeast are single-celled. The molds are filamentous. They have these structures that we call mycelia. This is what they look like. My drawing, I'm not very good, but these are multinucleated, but they have no separation. These are called aseptate or cenocytic mycelia. Here they have separation. They're called septate because they have individual cells. These are found in the more evolved, these are found in the less evolved. They're all absorptive in the way that they acquire nutrients. So they release enzymes to the environment gets broken down, and then they bring those nutrients into the cell, okay? They do undergo sexual reproduction, but they would prefer to reproduce asexually because it doesn't take them much energy to do so. They are prolific and they produce a bunch of spores. The only time the fungi will reproduce sexually is when they are stressed out. And stress to the fungi is no nutrients. Nutrients are lacking. They undergo sexual reproduction to increase the diversity and therefore have a better chance to survive. Mutations that occur in nature are important because that's how we continue to survive as a species. Because when mutations occur in nature, natural selection will select for the mutations that give an advantage to those things in nature, right? Now, we're not in competition like everything else in nature is. We're in competition with each other, but in order for us to obtain nutrients, all we have to do is go to H-E-B and buy them. That's different than out there where everything out there is food for something else. Right? Think about it. Everything out there is food for something else, except the things that are at the very top of the food chain, like us and a polar bear. The only true predator we have is a polar bear. And the polar bear looks at you at that thing and says, snacky pig. I'm gonna go eat that. Even sharks, they don't really feed on us. We're an accidental meal to them. They think we're a seal or something like that, and they bite us and like, I'll eat it. But we're not their target. Even orcas, we're not their target. They think we're seals, right? They take a chunk and like, oh, what the hell, I did it, let's eat it. Right? So it's important to think about that. So with the fungi though, they don't produce any embryos, they do produce zygotes, and we're gonna talk about what that means next time. We're not gonna get there today, right? So next time you'll come in, you'll take your exam, we'll go to lab, we'll finish lab. And today we're gonna finish the material for practical 2, so we'll just review what we're done in the lab, and then we'll have a review for the practical next Tuesday after the exam, okay? So here is a naturally occurring fungus. You can see it right here. This is a nematode trap. And these fungi exist in the soil outside. And the nematodes crawl into them and they trap them, and then they will digest the nematode alive. And that's pretty cool to think about how that works. Right, so the fungi themselves, though, on the most part, they're all good and they do really good things for us, right? They decompose dead organisms and recycle the nutrients, right? So they're not the biggest decomposer, the insects are. The insects will come in and they'll consume everything, and whatever is left over, the bones and the integument, the skin and the hair, that's when the fungi and the bacteria move in and they clean up everything, right? So it's pretty interesting to think about how this works, right? Some of them form association with the plant tips of the roots. And right now, we're probably not gonna have a really good wildflower season or bluebonnet season because we got very little rain during the fall and the winter. If we do, those bluebonnets are out there because of the association with the fungi and the bacteria that are helping to mitigate nutrients to them, right? We tried to grow orchids in the 1970s. In the United States, and we failed miserably because we went and got the orchids from Central and the Caribbean and South America, and we brought it here, but we didn't bring the fungi with them, and they need the fungi in order to grow. So we got smart, we brought soil with them, and now we can grow orchids all the time, and they're beautiful, and you can buy them at H-E-B. They're not very expensive, but they're not native. They won't grow here because the fungus that they need is not found in our soil. It's only going to be found in a little pot that they're in, right? So it's important to understand that. Fungi are used for food and religious ceremonies and the manufacture of other foods and beverages, right? So you've heard of Tempe and you've heard of kombucha and other things, right? Those are all made by fungi, right? And some of the fungi themselves are delicious to eat, and I'm gonna show you some of those in a minute. Right? They produce the first antibiotics nowadays. Most of the antibiotics we produce are synthetic because we know how to get these things made in a laboratory. And they serve as important research tools, right? 30% of all the fungi are disease causing, but most of them are going to be plant pathogens. Very few of them are actually human or animal pathogens. Very few. But there are some out there that can really cause troubles. Some of them are just going to be nuisance. They're just going to look bad on you, right? Ringworm. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And then they can spoil fruits and pickles and jams and jellies because they like acidic conditions, so they'll grow in your coffee or your Coca-Cola or your orange juice because they prefer a more acidic environment where the bacteria can't stand it. They won't grow there, right? So it's really interesting to think about how these fungi have evolved in a niche that the bacteria don't like. Well, maybe there's a reason that happened. Maybe they didn't want to be in competition with the bacteria, and over time they learned to be in this niche that's more acidic. Think about that the next time you open up your coffee mug that's been in your car for 2 weeks, and then you see all this fuzzy stuff growing on your coffee. And that's simply because the fungi like acidic environments. And thank God the door got open because I don't know if I could have handled it without my coffee. And by the way, this is my second cup. Or actually, my third, sixth cup. In what realm?
I already see you shaking.
Okay, so these are morels, and morels grow on my property in Bastrop. Anywhere you find loblolly pines, you're gonna find morels. I've only found them once time, and they were little, but I ate them anyway, right? Because they're delicious. They are the very good, delicious, very good, very good.
What do they taste like?
I like a mushroom, but they're very good. They have, to me, they have a more of a corny taste to it. I'm just saying. Yeah. Almost all of them are saprophytic, right? That means that they're gonna grow on things that are already dead. Do you know how we grow mushrooms? Do you like mushrooms, Harlow? I do too. Do you know how we grow them? We get some hay, we get some poop, chicken poop, cow poop, or whatever. We mix it together. We make a little bed. We put the spawn on top of it, and then we come and pick them. And a lot of times they'll grow in a room this size, very dark, very damp, and there'll just be rows and rows and rows of these fungi growing. And the pickers will go in there and cut them off and put them in a little hopper, and then they'll end up on the store kind of in a little basket or a little styrofoam container. Wednesdays are the best fun day for me because I go to my HEB and they have all the reduced mushrooms on sale for half price. I buy those suckers, they're good. People don't get it, they do rot, but not very quickly. So if you buy them, the best buy date is, I don't know, Friday, but you buy them on Thursday, they're still good. There's nothing wrong. Some of them have haustoria. Some of them are true vampires. They have a haustoria, and what they do is they stick this appendage into a cell, and then they suck everything good out of that cell, and that cell dies, but they get all those nutrients. They're like nature's true vampires, right? And almost all of them are aerobic, except the yeast, which are facultatively anaerobic. Can you appreciate how we've talked about that stuff, and now we're talking about it, and I don't even have to explain what they are, because you know what they are, right? It's scaffold. Okay? Isn't that cool? These are bird's nest fungi. They're really beautiful. And one time, several years back, I was walking at the park, and they were everywhere. We had just had a nice rainstorm, and they were everywhere. And I was taking pictures of them, and people were coming by, what are you doing? I'm taking a picture of these beautiful bird nest fungi, and they looked at me and they went, and they walked away. They don't appreciate nature at all. Okay? So here are the three different groups. These are yeast. Right? You can see they're budding, and that's how you can tell they're yeast. This are the mold. And this is a plate that we stuck right outside that door for about 30 minutes, and we put it in the incubator, and it grew over 200 different species of mold. You're breathing these in all the time. Right? They're on your clothes. They're everywhere. you can't get rid of them. Right? And then this is kind of a mushroom, but this is a special type of mushroom. This is called a stinkhorn. Anybody ever heard of a stinkhorn? Stinkhorns smell like poop. And the flies and the beetles think, oh, lunch, and they land on it, and they run around the lamellae, these little kind of ridges we call gills, and they pick up all the spores, and then they fly away, because all insects, almost all insects, 99.9% of all insects in their adult form fly, right? So they fly away and they drop off their spores wherever they land, and sometimes that might be on your tuna fish salad. And then you eat them, and then you pull them out, and then they go someplace and they start to grow. Right? So this is the way that the spores get disseminated from these mushrooms. I, on the other hand, I think you saw the picture of me holding a big old bunch of mushrooms, right? These things were growing in my yard. And I plucked them out of there when they were mature, and I just went around and I just shook them everywhere in the yard because I want them everywhere. Because they help to mitigate nutrients for everything else that's in nature. So I want them there. My next door neighbor is not very smart. And what he does is he kicks them when they're just growing. He says, I don't like these things, they're growing my grass. I'm like, look where they're growing. Do you see how green the grass is? That means they're getting a lot more nutrients than all the other places where the grass looks kind of like it's about to die. The fungi are good for the environment.
This is the neighbor that caught the field on fire, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And I'll tell you another story of him in a minute. He's not very smart, I'm telling you. Not very smart. Okay, here we go. So let's talk about yeast. Yeast reproduce by mitosis, or they bud. Right, this is asexual. And you can see this particular yeast cell has budded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. And that's pretty cool. They do die after a while, but you know, they produce so much progeny afterwards that they continue on and on and on, right? And so these are the moles, and so this is looking under a dissecting scope or a stereoscope, and you can actually see these are heads of spores, right? And these are the mycelia, right? And then here you can see this is a come back from, and just take a picture of the mold itself. These are all vegetative structures where the little black things are. Those are the spores, and they're prolific. You gotta be careful with some of these things because you open them up and you just barely breathe on them, poof, they go everywhere. And they contaminate the entire room, and you don't want that to happen. And then these are the macroscopic organisms. These are shelf fungi, and these, when they're early, when they're young, they're very, very soft. But when they get older and older, they get hard. And some of these things you have to get them out of there. They're growing on a telephone pole, so they can grow anywhere. Right? And the telephone poles are treated with antifungal medicine. They're not bothering me at all. Here's a dainty little guy. The dainty little guy is so dainty you might blow on it and it'll just fall apart. But they're everywhere. And there's research now because some people who like study the forest, right, and all the organisms in the forest, which is really kind of cool, they started to look, they started to think, well, are we missing some things, right? And so they found like trees that have fallen over, and they found holes in it, and they started to use a microscopic camera to go in there, and there's little tiny little mushrooms in there. It's amazing. And so they're taking those and trying to give them a genus and a species. And what they're finding is there's some medications that they produce, and they're trying to figure out what they could be used for. There's some molecules that we've never seen before, and that's pretty cool. So can these molecules be used to cure cancer or something else like that? We don't know. Because I'm a firm believer that the best medicine is a combination between Eastern and Western techniques. But I'm also a firm believer that a lot of the cures for things that make us sick are in nature. Right? We just gotta find out what they are. So there are some sad truths. This is oak wilt, and oak wilt is a really bad disease of oak trees that happens in Texas. And this is what oak leaves look like when they're healthy. This is what they look like when they have wilt. And so you can see the venations are constricted, because the fungus gets into the conductive tissues, the xylem and the phloem of the trees, and it blocks water and nutrients from getting to the rest of the tree. The tree will die fairly quickly, and it looks like this. And if it's there like this, the fungus is all over the place in the soil. And it's gonna move from tree to tree by the roots. The only way to stop it is to go in there and trench the areas around the tree, break up all the roots, and then put down a barrier. Usually it's cement, so that the roots can't pass that. That's the only way. Other than that, you're gonna get it. If you live in Southwest Austin, at the corner of Escarpment and Slaughter, that is the beginning of part of Circle C. If you look at that part there, there's a whole grove of oak trees that have been destroyed by oak wood. It's very sad. Very sad. This is a fairy ring. How many people have seen one? Y'all aren't getting out very much. This is a fairy ring. The fungus is right there. And it's grown radially, the mycelia has grown radially outward in a circle. That pattern is a theme that happens in science all the time. All the fungi grow radially. These are the reproductive structures. They're producing the spores. But the fungus is all in here. Look how healthy that yard is, or whatever that is, right? Some lot. Look how healthy that is. It's because the organisms in the soil are mitigating nutrients for all the plant life. And so you can see out here how green it is, and that's because now the mycelia is going out this way, and there's going to be a second area of these reproductive structures. Isn't that nice? Okay? This is a theme. All molds grow like this. So what's this? This is ringworm. That's the center of the infection. The mycelia have grown radially, and these little pustules at the end is where the active growing of that mold is happening. Isn't that interesting? I still have people today that tell me that ringworm is a worm. I'm like, no, it's not a worm. It is a fungus. Okay? Some of these things are good to eat, right? How many people have ever eaten huitlacoche? Ever heard of huitlacoche? Y'all don't get out much. Also known as corn smut. How many people have eaten fonda San Miguel? Nobody's eaten fonda? Oh, y'all don't get out much. Okay, let me come back down to the Vadia level. How many people go to Fiesta very often?
Yeah.
On Sunday, you can get tacos of huitlacoche and eggs, and they are delicious. Huitlacoche? It's corn smut. They call it corn mushroom because if they call it corn smut, you're not going to eat it. Right? But they call it corn mushroom. So there's the corn, and there's growing. One time I went into my HEB, and this was on the corn, and they were throwing it away. I'm like, can I buy those? And the dude looked at me from produce. He said, no, you can have them. And he got a box and he threw them in there. I took them home, peeled them off, chopped them up, made all kinds of, I made like huitlacoche and picadillo, and I put it in eggs. I had all kinds of fun. It was delicious. And during COVID, my wife was actually growing corn in our backyard, and she came into the house and she said, something's really wrong with the corn. I'm like, what's wrong? She goes, this is from my house. She goes, it's growing all these funny mushrooms on it. I'm like, she goes, I'm gonna burn them. I'm a burn pile. I'm like, give them to me. And I cut them out and made tacos. She didn't eat them, but I ate them. They were good. These are truffles. Truffles, the last time I tried to buy them, were $200 a pound. I said, can I have a sliver for $30? And that's what they sold me, because I didn't eat very much, right? And this is chicken of the forest, or hen of the forest. I think it's growing in that tree right out there. I see it. I'm gonna come over here with a ladder one day. I'm gonna get up there and I'll pump that thing out of there. I'm gonna eat it. But you know, it's pretty cheap at HEB. You can buy them at HEB, and they are delicious. You mean you work at HEB and you've never had chicken of the forest? You need to try it. Huh?
Chicken of the forest.
Or hen of the forest. They call them.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Huh? Go and look at the mushroom.
At a farmer's market.
Well, it gets more expensive at the farmer's market. Go to the heat. You work there on break. Walk on over to the produce area. Well then, you missed it all. Go look and send me a picture when you see it. Yeah. It's good stuff. By the way, these truffles, these dogs are trained to find the truffles, and when they find them, they start digging, and you help them dig, and you get the truffles, and hopefully you get a pound because you can make $200. My buddy lived in Wimberley. He's moved away now, but he owned a mushroom farm for a little while, and he didn't have a dog. He had a hog, and that thing was big. And on Sunday mornings, he'd come on over, we're gonna go hunting for truffle. I'm like, okay. I go over there. He let the hog out. It started running. You try to keep up with it. It moved fast, and then all of a sudden, and it started digging, and then it find all these truffles, and you try to move it out of the way to get it, but he was heavy, and he would sometimes eat half the truffles before you got one, because he knew what he was doing. It's pretty cool to think about. This is a puffball. My wife and I was called to a site in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That's where we had a facility. And we were driving down the road, and I said, stop the car! Show us what's wrong! I said, there's a puffball! I went out there and I plucked a puffball out of the ground. It was on the side of the road. Nobody owned it. It was on the side of the road. I was this big. I'm like, we're gonna have dinner. And I cut it up, and this is what it looks like when you grill it or saute it. It is delicious. We had friends over. We had 7 steaks out of that. And we had one left over. I cut it up the next morning, made it with egg, and I had puffball and eggs for tacos. Because I like tacos.
Is that the Sunoco's? Because we don't have this slide.
No, because I just did it this morning.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I get inspired. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'll put it on there. No, I'm not gonna. I probably won't ask about puffballs. I'm just trying to pique your interest right now because we're gonna start talking about the good stuff pretty soon, but not today. Okay. This is remember my neighbor, Snowmageddon. Remember that one? When that big snowstorm hit, ice storm. What do we call it? Snowmageddon or Armageddon? I don't know what we call it. Well, we lost all of our ashes, which I didn't really care for anyway. They were weak trees, but we cut them down. And then you said, I'm gonna have a tree stump guy come over, and he's gonna grind the stumps down for $200 each one. I'm like, she goes, do you want in on it? I'm like,
Each one.
I know, it's expensive. I said, no, I'm gonna use fungi to break down the stumps. He looked at me and goes, yeah, right. He walked away. Well, I just took the mushrooms out of my yard and I put them on look at that thing. 4 months later, that tree stump is completely digested. And now they're gone. Nature has its own way of cleaning up messes. You just have to learn how to appreciate how to use nature. Okay, we're gonna stop there for today because we need to review for exam clean. And there's a class coming in here, they like to kick us out. So let's review. So I made it, I think that there are 25 multiple guesses. There are 3 sections of matching. One of the matching is for all of the stuff that is DNA and RNA biology, like the terms like transposon and primase and things like that. One of them is for the standard growth curve. So instead of you guys writing out the standard growth curve, I put the standard growth curve and I put A, B, C, D, or E. And then I gave you things like, for instance, I'll say things like population stagnates, and you'll say which one that is. Which one would that be? A, B, C, D, or E?
Oh, okay.
Which one would that be? A, B, C, D, or E? Which one?
Wait, what did you say?
Population stagnates.
Is that D?
No. Which one? C. That means that population becomes equal. It stops growing. It becomes equal, right? So all those things we talked about, when we talked about the population curve, I put it in a matching, okay? And then my last matching is only 5, right? And it's about the mechanisms of action for the chemicals. Okay? So I put a heavy metal in there, I put a halogen, I put several of them on there, and all you have to do is match them, that's what they do. There will be nothing about antibiotics because you guys are doing that and that's worth 30 points. The exam, no matter how long it is only worth 70 points. Okay? Good?
What did you say the last mention?
Would be the mechanism of action for the chemicals, how the chemicals actually affect the cells. So I have a little review for you all, and we can go through it.